Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge. And I don't know what this is today. I mean, I'm not hating it, but we're starting off with a quick story time because I felt like doing something special with my hair today, but I also didn't want to dry and style my hair before I went to bed last night. So I remembered seeing on TikTok that people have been trying those leave-in curlers again, you know, the ones that we used as kids because they were a thing back then. They're just in different styles now. So yeah, I have some foam leave-in curlers that you can use on either dry hair or wet hair, and you can sleep on them. And so I did it. I've done it before. They give you these curls that are just chaos. They give you, but I was feeling it for a reason I'll tell you in a little bit. But the thing is that I woke up at 5 a.m. So I put these in at midnight when I went to bed, went to sleep, and it was okay. I slept on my stomach with my head. So it was pulling on kind of like these ones because when I was laying on my pillow, it was pushing on them. I woke up at 5 a.m. with a raging headache. And I was like, fudge. So literally in my sleep-addled brain, I take my curlers out and just pile them beside me on the bed. And I was just like, these are still going to be there when I wake up. Like, this is still going to be here. And it mostly is, you know. In fact, it tamped it down a little bit, which is good. So I just did it, floofed my hair over, put a little hairspray in, and we got this wild stuff going on. But point being, beauty is pain, y'all. Beauty is pain, because I woke up with such a bad headache, and I was like, this can't happen. We're going to take them out. We're going to take an aspirin and we're going to go back to bed. And luckily I woke up at 8 a.m. then and I was okay. But anyway, there was the story time. Let's get into it. I read 10 books this week and there was some epic books in here, okay? I had some 3-star books and I also had a 6-star book and many 5-star books. So I'm very excited to dive into what we read, including, I'm sure you can tell by the thumbnail, one of my most anticipated books of the year. And, you know, there won't be any spoilers in this video because that is not what I'm here to do. But I'm sure you've been seeing it going around that it's got some people in a tizzy because it was pretty exciting. But first off, we got to start with a new channel member. And I'm very excited about this channel member because they have been someone who has been commenting on my videos and been to my book club and other things for quite a while now. So we are welcoming Monica to the Romantic Renegades. Monica, thank you so much for joining my channel. It made me smile so much when I saw your name as a new sign up. If you are in my Discord, which I think maybe you are, maybe you're not, I don't know, send me a message and I will get you added in there. Otherwise, thank you so much. So without further ado, y'all, let us get into the books. Let me pull up my notes on everything and let's dive in because we got a lot to talk. I reread The Duke's Perfect Wife by Jennifer Ashley because she's going to be on my channel next week, as well as some of my friends. We're going to be interviewing her, and I'm so excited. I didn't get to read as many of her books for this as I wanted to. I still mostly have read the Mackenzies and one of her paranormal. I might try to fit another one in this week. But anyway, I reread this book. This is a second chance romance. This has Grumpy Sunshine. It's a Highlander. Our hero is Scottish. He's a Scottish duke, hence the name. And it's very interesting. If you've read the beginning Mackenzie books, I mean, a lot of people have read Ian Mackenzie, and Hart is the brother who is very stern and grumpy, for a better word, and very he's a stickler for a lot of things because he's trying to make things better for the Scottish people, and he knows that having a Scottish prime minister could really help with that. So that's been his goal for many years, is becoming a Scottish prime minister. And there is just a lot of things he's had to do and a lot of ways he's had to be so that that could happen. And he also was very cocky when he was young, and he made some mistakes, and those mistakes lost him Eleanor, who was someone he was engaged to when he was young. I believe it's supposed to have been 10, 12 years ago. It was quite a while ago. And Eleanor was someone he genuinely fell in love with. But if you didn't know, Hart had some BDSM practices that he was into. It's not straight up called it that in these books, but we know about this even from the first book, because Hart has a mistress who he would do that with. And back when he was young, he was going to give all that up to be with Eleanor, because she was his like perfect wife. She was the perfect person for him. But he messed it up because he got too cocky and he thought he could just keep her in a certain little area and keep her away from everything. And that was a mistake. You know, it was a mistake for him to be that way. And so now we're many years down the line, and he has decided that he wants Eleanor back. You know, he's actually been married to someone else. He lost that wife and his son and his newborn son. So there is definite like grief that he's dealing with, and he is still dealing with it all these years later. He lost his mistress, who he did care for. He just wasn't in love with her, but they were a long-term relationship, actually. And now he's poised to have everything he wants in his career, and he wants Eleanor back. And it just so happens that Eleanor has been brought to town by a blackmail letter. And this letter contained photos of Hart, boudoir photos with Hart, that he had taken with his mistress. He'd literally taken sexy photos with her. And when she died, they got into some hands that they shouldn't have. And that person is sending letters to Eleanor to blackmail Hart. And Eleanor, who her and her father are in kind of like dire straits for money-wise, she comes to London and asks Hart if she can investigate who's doing this to him and if he will pay her to be his investigator. And Hart doesn't really want her involved in this, but he also wants a reason to have her in forced proximity with him, so he agrees. So that was a lot of setup to get to the point. The reasons I love this book: I love watching Hart realize what his mistakes are with her and see him be willing to open up this time around. I love all the Mackenzie family. All of his brothers and his brothers' wives love Eleanor, and they think that he is an idiot for losing her. And so they're all really trying to push them together. And now Hart wants to be with her, but he's like, people, if you won't calm down, you're going to push her away from me again. Like, come on. But there's also just a lot he needs to learn, and I love watching it happen. This couple is so close to my heart. Like, I love Ian and Beth the most. I do. But Hart and Eleanor are very close for me. They are very much opposites attract, but there's also things about them that just draw them together, and it's so beautiful. Like, this book makes me so happy. So I highly recommend that you try some of the other Mackenzie brothers if you haven't. So next, I read an arc of Reckless Heir by Jenika Snow. This is another one I talk about in the vlog that I did. So this book comes out on the 21st, and I have some mixed feelings about it. So I ended up rating it as a 4 since I read an arc. I'm pretty lenient with arcs unless they very much offend me. And the thing is that I'm pretty used to Jenika Snow's writing at this point. I've read 6-7 of her books, most of them in her Lycan series, which in the Lycan series, I'm more okay with a lot of the bonkers things that she writes because they are animalistic. They are fated mates. They have this gut attraction. This is a arranged marriage mafia between the Italians and the Russians. So we have Amara, who is barely 18, and we have Nicholas, who is like the brother or like the son of the Russian Pecan, or else his brother is the Pecan. I can't remember. I think they might have overthrown their dad, and so the brothers are like leading together. And so he's going to be doing this marriage to, you know, cement them. And there's a lot of good spicy things in here. Jenika Snow, she has a full list in the front of her books of all of the kinks that are in there. I literally couldn't list them all, because her trigger warnings are more like kink content warnings. They're not so much like, because there wasn't really any coerced things in here. The biggest like trigger warnings are there is some like abuse that has happened to Amara before. She's in a very strict family. Her father is abusive. But as for like sexual wise, there's an attempted assault on her, which is then crushed by, and it's not by the hero. The hero beats the living shit out of that person. So there's that. The thing that made me the most uncomfortable, and I think will make other people uncomfortable, which is why I couldn't give this like a more enthusiastic, like you should read this, is that the hero seemed a bit obsessed with how young the heroine was. And I don't think, I'm praying so, I don't think that Jenika Snow meant it to come across that way. But the hero, on 4 different occasions, and the book is only like 250 pages, but I started counting the times that he did this because it disturbed me. On 4 different occasions, the hero remarked on her either being barely legal, her being his virgin innocent, which that doesn't bother me too much. I know that bothers some people, but like that doesn't always bother me if the hero says that. But it was more about how young she was, my young innocent bride, my barely legal bride, my, you know, like literally he commented on the fact that she is barely a woman. Like he commented on it 4 times, and it really started to bother me. And not only was he commenting on it, specifically one time when he's thinks the words, my barely legal bride, he gets a boner and starts jacking off to the thought of how young she is. And I'm like, Jenika, do you realize that this is tiptoeing into a very inappropriate situation? And so I would be enjoying this book, and then that would like worm its way in. And I'm like, I don't want my hero to be thinking that. Like, I have read plenty of mafia books where my heroine is the exact same age as Amara. Like, it is a very common thing. But usually the hero likes her despite the fact that she's 18, or she's very mature, and so he's like, she doesn't seem like she's 18. Or they'll comment on her being innocent, but they won't specifically say it's because she's barely 18, you know? Like, an example, like, I think of Luca from Bound by Honor, and he doesn't like that she's barely 18. He feels a little weird that he's been engaged to her since she's 15, even though he knows that's the way that his people do things, that's the way that the mafia does it. He's still like, she's so young, like, this is disturbing, you know? So it made Nicholas a bit ick to me, and I don't know what else to say. So I did rate this 4 stars. The kink is very up there. It's 4 for the spice scale. But that may make you uncomfortable the way that it did me. And I hate to say that, but I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy her writing. I enjoy the kinks that she puts into them, because not all authors do. But I'm just saying, I wish she had used different words. You know, I wish that me being an ARC reader, I was able to have given feedback on something like that, you know, but ARC readers aren't beta readers, so you don't get to do that. So sorry, it's a no from me there. Okay, then I read Gild by Raven Kennedy. This was on my February TBR because this is a viewer recommended book, as well as, yes, I've seen it on TikTok. I'm trying to read a few books that I see as very popular on TikTok so that I can eventually do, like, I'm not going to do it as a vlog because I didn't want to read them all at once, but I'm slowly making my way through some TikTok popular books so that I can do like a review of them. But okay, so this book is like a retelling of the myth of Midas. So King Midas was the king with the golden touch. And then we have our heroine, who her name is Auren, A-U-R-E-N, and she is a golden woman. She's called the gold-touched whore of Midas, and she literally lives in his palace, where her parts of the palace are literally caged off. So she's his bird in a gilded cage. And the book begins with him having an orgy and her having to watch it, and her wishing that he would have sex with her more than he does, and that he wouldn't need to use all the other whores. She wants to be his one and only. So yeah, an interesting way to start the book. Also, all the whores in this series are called saddles. I'm sure you can understand the, you know, is allegory the right word? I don't know, what they're going for with this. All the prostitutes are called saddles. That feels good. It's not supposed to feel good, you know, it's not like the author's trying to be clever and find a new respectful word. Like, it's supposed to be just as degrading as it sounds, but that doesn't mean it feels good when it's on every page someone's being called a saddle. It's not great. So Midas is very mercurial, very Machiavellian. He has things happening within the land. He's trying to gain more power in certain areas, and he uses Auren to help him do that. we get bits and pieces of their history, how they've gotten to this place. She has been with him since before he was even king. The land was very poor. He was able to use his golden touch to give wealth to the land and eventually become its king. He also does have a wife. He has a royal wife, who of course hates Arryn because she's his favorite. It was a very weird setup. So also, this was not romantic or sexy in any way. And there is like barely any spice between who are the two main characters. From what I've heard as well, like I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so I don't know. I gave this 3 stars and it got 1.5 on the spice scale. There are serious trigger warnings for misogyny in here. Like, that's not always something that I mark as like a trigger warning, but it was for me because I'm a person that like, I know when there's this kind of treatment happening in a book that it's there because you're supposed to be upset. You're supposed to feel what the character feels, but I don't need to be slapped in the face with it on every page. So what I wanted to say about this. I know from almost everyone who's read more than the first book, they all tell me that this book is the weakest. It's not a perfect setup. It has flaws. And I was like, yeah, you think? You think. I listened to the audiobook of this one. The audiobook was very good. So that helped. It had a narrator that I liked, so it helped push me through. But I did a hell of a lot of skimming in the beginning of this because this definitely reads like a YA book. It absolutely does. Besides the fact that they're using naughty terms, like they're using the C word for women and they're using swear words, like this could have those stripped out and it literally would be a YA book. And no matter what anyone's telling you, this isn't spicy. It is like there are lots of, like they're whores. So there are scenes where people are doing that, but I don't consider that spice when it's not between the main characters. There's only one scene in this book between Midas and Arryn. And again, I know from people that like Midas might not be endgame in this series. The series is not even done yet. There's 3 books out. There's 1 more coming. And I am willing to read a next book because I know people are going to tell me, don't give up with this one, blah, blah, blah. And I might not. But I'm just going to say, when you're an author and you write this as your first book, you are risking that people won't continue. Because there was a twist at the end of this where I was like, oh, okay, I see that was supposed to be the thing to keep me going. But there was no character that I liked in this book. I didn't even like Arryn. I didn't even like her. So if you're going to do something like that, like I feel like you need to make someone that I want to root for, because otherwise I'm like, well, I don't care what's going to happen to her, so why am I going to continue? So that's my personal opinion. I am going to read Gleam. I just don't know when. I will probably wait till the series is complete and see what people think about the finale. See if it like wraps itself up good. Because otherwise, like, I'm not going to waste my time. Because this is the smallest one. Like, they all get bigger from here. So there's my catty, sassy thoughts on that. There they are. Okay, next. I read a book that was also 3 stars, but for a lot of different reasons, and I also still had a lot of fun. So I had shared this in my stories last week. I had found this at a used bookstore last year. I think I found it at a Half Price Books, and it said that it was an erotic novel of Maid Marion, and I was like, hey, that sounds like something I would like, so I grabbed it. And then I found it again when I was scanning my books into my library app, which I've talked about a few times now. So this book was 3 stars because it was not great, but I had a lot of fun. It also, the level of erotica in a book that came out in, I think this was 2009, yeah. So the level of erotica in a book that came out in 2009, like, it wasn't overly erotic. I'll just say that. Like, there is lots of sex happening in this, but a lot of it is in situations where, like, Prince John in this book has, like, a harem of women, and he enjoys watching other people engage in sex acts and participating himself, and he enjoys, like, BDSM elements, but a lot of it's not very sexy because Marion has been taken under Will's wing, who in this book, Will Scarlet is the Sheriff of Nottingham, and he is, like, he took her under his wing to be his plaything so that she wouldn't be John's plaything. Now, Marion is a widow, and she's been sent by Queen Eleanor, who is the mother of Richard and John, right, to keep an eye on what's happening in John's court. And she knew she was probably going to be pulled into some sexual things because Eleanor had heard that her son was being quite deviant and taxing the people and having orgies all the time. So Marion's kind of sent in as a spy. We do also have Robin doing his thing. Robin is a philanderer and a troublemaker, and he is still robbing from the rich to help the poor, but he shows up, and pretty much any woman he's around, he wants to be fucking her. So I guess that's also erotic, but Robin Hood, really not the important part of the story. It's really about Marion trying to survive in John's court and not be horrendously raped. You know, we're just trying to keep it at a low level. So there is some dubious scenes, but for the most part, she's consenting to what's happening between her and Will. But Prince John, he is not the king, does get his hands on her sometimes. So I gave this book 4 stars, I gave it 3 stars, and it does have 4 stars for spice. But also, like I said, this was fun. The dedication for this was for all the women who prefer Alan Rickman and Richard Armitage. And I was like, yes, that's me. So I thought it was fun. It still is, you know, like a historical romance. It's a medieval romance. There's those aspects of Robin Hood if you like it. So I had a great time, and I did already order the other 2 books. They should be arriving soon because this author has done this with both The Count of Monte Cristo and The Phantom of the Opera. So I have both of those books coming to me because, yeah, the plot, there was a plot. It was there. There was lots of sex. It wasn't all like the sexy sex we're probably used to lately, but it also wasn't like so erotic that I was like, oh, I can't. But it is an erotic novel of Maid Marion because there's lots of sex happening. But I don't know. It wasn't any more than anything else. And again, it was pretty fun. So I gave this one 3 stars, but I had no expectations for it at all. I bought it because of what it was. I also did really love the cover, even though it literally looks like she's in a costume, Halloween costume. Like you can see the bad seams on it and everything. But I love that. So I'm definitely going to read the other ones and see how those go. All right, then I read The Duke Who Didnt by Courtney Milan. I also had an audiobook for this one. This is a book that I've been wanting to read since it came out. It came out 2 years ago now, and I had kind of forgot about it for a while. And then when I was at Barnes & Noble, it was there. One of the self-pub copies of it was there. And I was like, damn, I'm going to buy that. And I had put it on my February TBR because it had got like drawn out of my TBR, or maybe I just picked a few. I can't remember why this one was on there, but it was on my TBR and I wanted to read it. And the audiobook, I got it from Scribd, I think, but I think it is available on Anyplay. I just used Scribd. So this one was so adorable. I adored this book. This book is about Chloe and Jeremy. Jeremy Wentworth is a half Chinese duke. His mother is Chinese. His father was a duke, and his father had died, and he'd been living with his mother I don't know if they were in China or where they were, but he starts getting brought to like stay with his family, and he kind of like sneaks away from that to this small little village. And he goes there every year, and he meets Chloe, she's a couple years older than him, just like 2 years older than him. Her and her father are Chinese immigrants, and her father is a like chef, and he had one of his recipes stolen from him by these Americans who were like, you're never gonna make it here anyway, and they like stole his recipe. And so him and his daughter, they work in this small town, and they're trying to like earn enough money to kind of like get their sauce out there, you know. And anyway, it's been a couple years since Jeremy has been back because he really wants to marry Chloe, but he's kind of shy. He's so sweet. He's such a cinnamon roll. Like, he's so sweet. And in any other book, I might have been annoyed that he was so shy and like, but he's very funny. He's definitely self-deprecating, and he makes a lot of jokes at his own expense. He also is like hiding that he's a duke. But the thing is, don't worry about that, because there's no third act conflict in this book, y'all. There isn't. And it's funny to me as a romance reader, because don't we all bitch about the third act conflict or say it's a miscommunication and we're like, oh, I hate it. Well, yeah, we hate it. But also, when it's not there, some people don't like it. So this book isn't rated super highly because people are like, there was no tension. There was no third act conflict. And I was like, damn it. Sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes it's just cute shit and you like it. And this was adorable. This is like, look at this cover. Look at this couple. This is fantastic. It was wonderful. I gave it 5 stars. It's only really 2 on the spice scale, but it was sugary sweet, just a little bit of spice. And it was fantastic. And everyone else is like, there wasn't enough tension. Shoot. Stay away from this perfect, beautiful, squishy book, okay? Just go away. Take your drama somewhere else. All right. Okay. Now we're getting into part of the reason why I was rocking my curly, squishy, wild hair today. And that's because this week I read 3, count them, 3 Hermione fanfics. All with different all with different pairings. And I wanted to make my hair wild and represent the Hermiones out there. Because Hermione, I read a lot of fanfics, okay? And I don't feel sorry. I'm literally in the middle of 2 more. And obviously I'm reading enough other books to mix in for you. But if you don't like Harry Potter fanfic, maybe you should try it. Side note again, there's some drama going around TikTok because every couple months the piracy conversation comes up. And piracy is very bad. It is bad for authors, and which means it's going to be bad for readers, because if authors can't make money with what they're doing, they're going to give up and go back to their day jobs and stop writing as books. So stop stealing them. However, what you can do that's free, you could read fanfic, okay? There are millions of fanfics out there. And they're free. People like us who are nerds and want more stories about the characters that someone else has already created, and it's free because it's the writers of it aren't making money off of it, okay? So, that's my statement. Don't pirate. Read fanfic. There you go. But anyway, so the first one we're going to talk about, I need another drink. I need to drink first. I got very excited about that. I had put a post on my YouTube community page a couple weeks ago asking for just all the fanfics. And I made a list of them. And also one of my friends, Ash, thank you, Ash, I love you. She has this amazing spreadsheet with all of her fanfics she's read. And so I snagged a couple off of there. Only the ones for AO3. So just so you know, all of the ones I'm about to talk about, which I will link them down below so you can go right to the page of them. Because with AO3, you can literally get a Mobi file and download it to your Kindle, which is just better for me. Like, I don't want to use my computer or have my phone on the fan site to read it. I'm just lazy. And there are plenty on AO3 for me to choose from. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. I read Compelled by Slitherpuff, and I don't have a cover for this one or fan art that I've been able to find. So here's just the blank thing from my Kindle. But this one is a Snape Hermione pairing. Yep. Which I was totally okay with trying because I was like, what will be bad about this? I love student-teacher situations. I like age gaps. And this one is a sex curse, okay? So this one is our heroes have lost. Well, most of them have lost. There are still some around, including Snape. And there are some, Also, I've read, like I said, a few of these, so I want to make sure I don't mix them up. Basically, Voldemort wants to punish Hermione and reward Snape, so he puts a spell on the both of them that's a sex curse, and it means that they will feel overwhelming desire for the other one, and they will be in extreme, agony if they can't end up fucking the other person. So Snape is horrified by this because he still is part of the Order, even though he thinks he's the last one around. And he's like, oh no. So he tells Hermione everything, and he, is like, I am so sorry that I have to be this person, and you are going to feel like you want me because he's made you feel this way. And so that's how it starts. Every so often they will well, not every so often, like it's daily or every other day, they have to have sexual release with each other or they are in extreme pain and they have to. And yeah, so this starts happening, and there's also just, it's just gut-wrenching. I don't even know what to say. So slowly we find out too that there's other Order members who haven't been wiped out, and Hermione was gifted Grimmauld Place by Harry, so they have a home for the Order to kind of go from. So, and there are other people alive. I don't want to spoil those things, but this was amazing. It was so good. The ending to this one, I cried big tears for this book, for this fic. This one was, I don't even know how many pages it was. It's hard to tell. I think I put this one as, I hid the pages. I think this one was like a 700 or more page one. But I loved it. I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. This one had a 4-star Spice rating. Obviously, there is rape and compelled sex in here. There is major character death. Yeah. There's also another situation, too. Like, because we do see Draco in this one, and he doesn't want to be bad anymore. And he actually has a situation in this one too that was really depressing. So anyway, I liked it a lot. I don't know what else to say about this one. There was so much in this one, but I'm not going to go into like a 20-minute thing about this one. But yeah, Snape and Hermione is a ship I'm going to read more of because this is amazing. I don't know what else to say. Moving on to the book that I can say nothing about. House of Sky and Breath. Okay, I read it. I started it on Tuesday at work. I listened to it, and then I took Wednesday off, and I finished it. And it's 6 stars. I would still give this one about like a 3.5 on the spice scale, because we are getting some more sexy times. But it's still like pretty drawn out. And the thing is so I listened to an interview that Sarah J. Maas did with the Fated Mates, which was awesome. There was no spoilers in this at all. You can absolutely listen to that podcast even if you haven't read this yet. But she explains why like Bryce and Quinn are kind of taking like it slow with their relationship because they know that they were in a very like high pressure situation at the end of Crescent City, and even though they were all hot and heavy for each other, they're like, let's like date. So they're like dating at the beginning, which is really cute. We get, what's some other non-spoiler things? We get a lot of new POVs. I won't say who those are. We are finding out a lot more about the world and the corruption that's happening. That wasn't just limited to what happened in the first book. That was actually just a place where the evil was spilling over. We get to see other parts of Crescent City, and you want to pay close attention to everything you're finding out. And the biggest thing that I will say is, because you know what? I know that some people think that Earth and Blood was boring. I didn't find it boring. It was tedious in some places because there's a lot of things that Sarah was sharing. But one of the things that she says in the interview is she's like, all of that has a purpose. All of those descriptions and explanations and history that we learn in Earth and Blood are going to make the reveals at the end of this book make sense. So I didn't reread Earth and Blood before I read this. I was just like, I don't have the time. I don't have the brain space. I'm just going to dive in. But, I mean, obviously we'll have how long before there's another Crescent City book. Who knows when it could be. I'm sure there'll be an ACOTAR book first, you know, because she is continuing that series too. So I have time. But I think many of us who didn't reread Earth and Blood first are going to do that, because those things that felt boring, that we wanted to skip, that we wanted to skim, they are pertinent for what's happening here and what will be happening. So I loved this. I loved the new characters we met. I loved learning them more deeply. And yeah, I loved a lot more of the sexiness, and it was great. It was so great. And I think it helps if you're a big fan of all of Sarah's works, because she just brings there's just certain things she puts into every book that just make it feel like home to me, and I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, this is a 6-star book. I'm not ashamed. Her books will probably always be 6 stars for me. And yeah, I feel like an epic reread of Sarah J. Maas needs to happen soon. And I also really wish that I could have coffee, just her and me, and just be like, okay, so just tell me some things. So anyway, I didn't do a vlog for this one, which was something that I've done a review or a vlog for every Sarah J. Maas book since Kingdom of Ash. So I may do a video and just do like my 5 favorite scenes, maybe. I don't know, my 5 favorite parts. Because honestly, I don't even know how to sum up this book into a review. Like, I kind of wish I'd vlogged it, but also I'm glad because I didn't have to stop. I didn't have to try to think about how to verbalize what I was feeling. But I am pretty jealous of a lot of my friends that like got their reactions for what happens like on camera. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, definitely loved that one. Alrighty, then I read the darkest, not just fanfic, but the darkest book I've ever read, okay? And this one is called A World Not Fit to Live In, and it is by Lissa Dream and Snowblind 10. And this book is a Lucius Malfoy and Hermione romance, but Draco is also, like, I don't want to say involved because it's not a like 3-way situation. No. But the setup of this book is in the same way that like Compelled was a sex curse. Hermione and the other muggles, like as punishment, they are given to the Death Eaters, and there's a sex bonding, a slave curse put on Hermione so that every like, how do I explain it? So once Lucius and Hermione have both had sex with her, she must obey their commands. And as long as they have sex with her within every like 3 to 4 days, she has to listen to their commands. So you can see the trigger warning set up for this already, okay? So this book was so dark. It was so dark. It was so painful. Like, besides just, and I'm not saying just the rape, but besides the fact that she's getting raped, Lucius isn't really being a punishing person. Like, he understands this is like a punishment for Hermione. He thinks she's beautiful, and he also is like, okay, fine, I'll do this thing. But Draco seems to be sadistic and evil, and the things that he does to Hermione, not just sexually, but just mindfuckery, was another level of holy shit. Like, there was a point in this one where I was like, why am I reading this? You know, I don't know. I'm not saying like I heard a ton of great things, but some people I'd said like they just really loved Draco, and I was very confused. I was like, you love Draco in this book. I don't understand. And I kept waiting for the penny to drop. I'm like, what is happening? Because the trigger warnings for this, I can't even, there are so many. Where do I have it listed at? Let me get to them. There is, rape, non-con, abuse, torture, thoughts of suicide, attempted suicide, loss of a parent. This is one of the darker stories I've ever read. There is just agony, forced pregnancy. I've totally forgot about that one. That's what it becomes eventually. To see which of the Malfoys can knock her up first will become her husband. But then I found out what was happening. And I was like, son of a bitch, I'm in. Just like that TikTok is, right? But the thing is, I don't recommend this one. And I know when I say I don't recommend something that people are like, whoa, I want to see how edgy it was. And I'm honest to God, hand on heart, telling you, this was traumatizing. Were I someone who got traumatized and had nightmares about a book, this would be it. But I don't. But I would if I did. And there was, when I was going through that part of the book where I was like, this is so fucked. Who would write this? Who would write this on a page? I was like, I'm going to give this 2 stars, but I'm going to finish it because this is my own problem. This is why I need to be careful, because I read some things that I don't wish that I had. But when I found out what was happening, I cried so hard. And I understood why people said they loved Draco. You won't believe me. When you're in the moment and you're reading it, you're like, Jenn's a liar. Jenn's a liar. But when I got to the end, I was like, oh, okay, I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I couldn't give it 5 because I will never forget. And in the way that when this is all over, when we are at the happily ever after of this, because it does have happily ever after. Thank you. Hermione says, like, I can forgive this, but I will never forget. And I understood. So, yeah. So I gave this 4.5 stars. And I went only off of the scenes with Lucius, because I forget, like, this is a romance between her and Lucius. And that was beautiful. Like, it was beautiful how him falling for her and still holding some of his beliefs about purebloods, but then he's in love with Hermione, and how he has to reconcile with, have I believed a lie? Have I believed evil things? Because this woman that I love is the things I'm supposed to hate. How do I reconcile with this? Like, that was very powerful. It really was. So anyway, my point being, this is a 4-star on the Spice, only going off of the things between her and Lucius, because I don't consider the things happening with Draco to be sexy at all. Because they're rape, and it's bad. It's not the non-con. Like, this isn't a Calvin situation where it's like, oh, it's sexy, non-consent. Like, no, it's not. It's horrible. So anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, that one was, I don't know what I was thinking, but I couldn't stop. And there we go. Then I read The Proposal by Mary Balogh. This is actually supposed to be a March read, because this is going to be the March book for Rake Appreciation Society. This is also a reread for me. This is the first book in the Survivors Club. We'll give you a little peek at Gwendolyn. This is about Gwendolyn, Lady Mirror. She is a widow, and she's staying with a friend of hers, and she has a little bit of a fight with her friend, and so she goes for a walk on the beach, and she trips and hurts herself. She actually already has a limp. Our heroine has a messed up knee from a fall that she'd had, and so she slips, and our hero, Hugo, who is staying at his friend's house, it's the Survivors Club. They meet together every year because they've all survived different indignities and struggles from the Napoleonic Wars, and he was actually made a lord because of his service, and he led this battle that was very brutal, and it was called, like, I can't remember what it's called, but he's literally made a lord because of it, and he is very kind of like bitter about that he was rewarded for this. But his father also died, and his father wasn't a lord, but he left him a lot of money. Like, his father was a merchant who was, like, pretty wealthy. So now he is lorded, and he has money and land, and he just wants to be a quiet, like, businessman. But he goes to stay with his friend, and he's going for a peaceful walk on the beach, and he sees this happen. And so he brings Lady Mirror back to the Duke's house, and she ends up having to stay there for like a week. And he's very like grumpy, he's very like blunt, and Gwendolyn starts to fall in love with those things. And he's very, so this book had a lot of sensuality to it, because he's very like, he's looking for a wife, but he wants a wife that he has great sex with. Like, he says that, and I love it. He's like, well, I don't plan to go outside of my marriage, so I want to have great sex with my wife because I don't plan to be unfaithful. And I was like, I love that he just says it. And also, too, he's like, I might be a lord now, but I'm from a family where, like, we're faithful, you know? But he also thinks that she is stuck up and reckless. He gets kind of a bad thought about her. And there's also a trigger warning in here for loss of a child, because Gwendolyn, she was actually riding a horse when she was like 6 months pregnant, and she fell and lost the baby. And he hears her tell him this story, and he's kind of like, why would you risk your baby and risk your own life? And so he kind of thinks a little bit poorly about her because of this, not knowing the full story. And let's be honest, today, if we'd seen someone riding a horse at 6 months, we might raise our eyebrows. Like, we might do that. Even though if it's your horse and they're very safe, you can be just as safe riding at 6 months as you can other times. But he just sees it as like, you're a privileged, rich wife and you weren't thinking about your child. Like, that's what he thinks in the beginning, right? I mean, this book was like very Pride and Prejudice, guys, in like a lot of ways, not gonna lie. And yeah, I don't want to go like too much deeper into things, but during that time, that week when she's staying with him, like, she falls in love with him and they do have like an encounter together. But she's like, he desires me, he doesn't want me. And she's like, and I'm in love with him, so it's not gonna work. So she goes back home. Well, he has a younger sister that she really wants to have like a season kind of. And he's like, maybe that would be an excuse for me to go talk to Lady Marion. So he actually goes to see her and he proposes to her. And I don't want to spoil anything else because this is a Rake Appreciation Society book. But I gave this book 4 stars. It is only really 1.5 on the spice scale, but he's a dirty talker. But the actual sex acts we see, like, there's not that many of them. But it was really sweet. So there is quite a few trigger warnings, though. So let me say those. I already said loss of a child. There's loss of a spouse, loss of a parent. There is suicide, depression, and like PTSD in this book. They're all talked about in a very like classy way. I don't know how else to say that because, you know, it's Mary Balogh, so she has a way of discussing those. But can't wait for y'all to read that one. It really made me want to binge through the rest of the series because you meet all of the survivors in the beginning because he's there with them all. And I was like, oh yeah, I love them. So I'm excited about it. And then the last book that I read was another fic. And this one was a Hermione Neville fanfic. And this one is called Safe Word is Devil's Snare. And this is by Shaya Lonnie. And I was very intrigued by this one. This one was pretty lighthearted compared to the other ones I've read. There still is kind of a serious undertone going on that I will say. But this one is like 5-6 years after the Wizarding War or something. And all of our like couples have kind of got divorced. Like there was this spike in marriages in the years after the Wizarding War. And now they're kind of falling apart because they were kind of trauma bonded to these people. So Hermione was married to Ron and they got divorced, and Harry was married to Ginny and they got divorced. But they're all still friends because that's part of the reason they got married in the first place, is they were all friends and they were all around each other. Hermione works for the ministry and she's been doing a lot of research. And there's something happening, like they're having a lot of squibs be born. And they're not sure why. And so they come up with this spell that is supposed to help you find your best match. So it's basically like a Match.com spell. So they forcibly ask for volunteers for this, but they may make it into a law where you are forced to marry your best match. But Hermione and like their friends and their like age range, they volunteer to be first. So they show up and this spell gets cast over them. And when they look around the room, they're supposed to see the brightest lights. And if their lights match each other, they have a good chance to be together. And there can be more than one, so you're just supposed to pick your like best match. So Hermione actually, like, her and Harry have a lot of light the same. Her and Draco have a lot of light the same. But Draco's kind of like, nah. And Hermione's like, nah. And Harry's like, Hermione, this would be great. And she's like, picture me naked right now. And he's like, no. And she's like, exactly. So, but everyone else is kind of finding people, and she didn't. And she's like, well, I'll just come to the next one, because they're going to be doing these like weekly now. And just as she's leaving, she bumps into Neville, who has been out of the country hunting down dark wizards. He's been an Auror, and he's done these different things to track down dark wizards. And the person doing the charm, like, does the charm to Neville, and literally Hermione and Neville light up so bright that they almost are knocked out. They're light up so bright. And Neville is like, wow. And Hermione's like, huh, Neville. So they go out on a date, and Neville kind of shares that, you know, he's always kind of had a crush on her, but he knew Ron liked her, so he stepped aside, and, you know, then he kind of lost his chance with her, you know. And she had no idea, of course. She didn't know. And yeah, so they start seeing each other, which very quickly they're going to get engaged to, because like everyone starts getting married right away and starts trying to get pregnant, because that's the purpose of what they're doing. But he admits to her that he's actually into BDSM, and he understands if that makes her uncomfortable, but it's a big part of his sex life, so he wanted to share with her. And Hermione's like, I don't know if I would like that. I like being in control. And he's like, well, I think you can find that being in, like, letting someone else be in control sometimes could be really fun if you want to try it. And I mean, it's pretty good from there. So the underlying, like, dark thing that I said, though, is that the Ministry is getting really aggressive with this, because they really need there to be magical children born. And Hermione, she meanwhile is trying to come up with a cure for squibs. And so she's doing research into why someone might be a squib, and, you know, when they first have their outbursts of accidental magic and what really awakens it in people. So it was very interesting, and it was great how it all wrapped up. So I gave this one 5 stars. It was so fun. It's a short one too. It's only like 230 pages compared to the tomes that I've been reading that are fanfics lately. So I highly recommend this. 5 stars, 4 on the spice scale. Y'all, Neville, he was great, okay? He was a cinnamon roll dom, and it was delicious. It was perfection. So, anyway, there we go. Those are all the books that I read this week. It was quite the week, man. It was quite the week. And I'm just saying, don't expect the fanfics to go anywhere anytime soon. I will still take recommendations down below. I'm only doing Harry Potter fanfic right now, though. Only that. That's all that I'm interested in currently. Maybe someday we'll go somewhere else. But for now, that's all we're doing. So if you have Harry Potter fics, any pairing that you are interested in whatever, particularly if it's on AO3, put it down below. Thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel and like this video. Have a great day, y'all. Bye!